What's up, guys? It's DJ Pompey from No Coast Raps. Today we're going to talk about Eminem's Killshot response to Machine Gun Kelly, the prospect of battle rappers breaking off from leagues and going independent, whether or not Machine Gun Kelly used ghostwriters in his diss to Eminem, and whether or not Puff Daddy killed Tupac. This is the Spaghetti Report.
Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm. Spaghetti to drop bombs, but he keeps on spaghetti. What he wrote down, the whole crowd goes spaghetti.
Thanks for watching, guys. This week's No Coast drops were Father Focus Confucius versus Soda from the Focus Fest event in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Josh Carroll versus MC Squared from Breakout in Chicago. We've had a number of people writing questions for me to address as well. Thanks for doing that. Keep them coming. Namely, Father Focus Confucius, Shake, Rob K, Kelly Betts, and Kid Galaxy. You could catch Kid Galaxy versus Rome's and Father Focus versus Wisdom at the upcoming No Coast event in St. Louis, Arch Rivals, where I'll be battling OK Nice. I'll get to as many of your questions as I can. Some of them I want to research a little more and maybe cover later. So the big news, the long anticipated, or at least for a week anticipated, Eminem response to Machine Gun Kelly dropped on Friday. It is called Killshot. Possibly after the movie by the same name, which stars an actress named Coulson, which happens to be Machine Gun Kelly's last name. The general consensus seems to be that while musically not that impressive, I think the production isn't very strong on Killshot, for instance. Eminem in general doesn't seem to be that great at picking beats, so maybe he should delegate that in the future. But regardless, overwhelmingly, the consensus is that this was more than enough to beat what MGK was putting out. Even with the bonus points, I think MGK should get for responding very quickly. I covered on last week's episode some guidelines I think we should use to score rap beefs. You can check that out if you want, but as I count, one round has elapsed and Eminem is up 1-0. We probably will not see a full second round. Even if MGK responds again, I highly doubt Eminem will further entertain this, but who knows. A lot of people want to see Joe Budden come out of retirement for this and get into it responding to a couple lines from the Kamikaze album. I don't know if we'll see that happen. Rest in peace to Joe Budden's mic. Something I want to point out about the Killshot diss that I haven't seen discussed yet, despite the copious discussion, is just how direct it was. Like, in addition to being, more intricate and perhaps winning just on a rapidy rap level, is extremely direct as a response. It rebuttals almost every line of the MGK track that it's responding to, Rap Devil. If you take a look at this, let me geek out on you. These are the lyrics to Rap Devil. In orange, we have lines that were specifically responded to in Eminem's follow-up Killshot. And in green, we have substantive attacks that were not addressed. So as you can see, there's something like 36 bars that were directly addressed and maybe only about 16 that actually said something that weren't covered. So this may be like the most complete example of rebuttals in beef track history. It's the most complete that I can think of. So as I say, what it lacks in musicality and what it lacks on haymaker lines, it makes up for in substance and layers. As always, it's opened up even further cans of worms, particularly a controversial line in which Eminem insinuates that Puff Daddy had Tupac killed, which has caused Jay Electronica and others to kind of get up in arms about that. The reason for bringing Puff into it is that Puff is an executive that Machine Gun Kelly works under. And honestly, I don't see what the big deal is, because Eminem specifically says afterward that he's kidding. So, if you're gonna live your life taking Eminem lyrics that seriously, even when he says he's joking, that's not good for your blood pressure. But he's referencing an old conspiracy theory. You can look into that if you want, but the point is there's a lot of conspiracy theory thinking that just floats around and gets repeated with no real support. And record execs screw over artists in a lot of ways, but generally putting out hits on them is not one of the ways that they do that. There's also a theory that Tupac did not in fact die, and, you know, perhaps is off living happily in Cuba somewhere. Again, no evidence for that. Seems like wishful thinking. Interestingly, the crux of that theory has to do with Tupac putting out a project, Machiavelli. It was named after the political thinker Niccolo Machiavelli, known for advocating sort of very cynical, scheming strategies in order to maintain power, hence the term Machiavellian. And the theory goes that Machiavelli faked his death, and so because Tupac took on the name Machiavelli, he must have faked his death too. The interesting thing about this theory is the original Machiavelli didn't actually fake his death, nor did he ever advocate faking his death. That's out of whole cloth. So this is just to give you an example that people simply make shit up. So if you're going to repeat something, maybe look into it. Another piece of nonsense that's come out of this is this meme that's circulating that is simply a screen cap of the writing credits for the MGK song Eminem was responding to, Rap Devil, which shows ostensibly 2 writers. And everyone's like, aha, he must have had other people write this. So this is very simple. One of those names is simply the real name of Machine Gun Kelly. The other name is the real name of the producer. People, when this is pointed out, say, but why does the producer have a writing credit? He must have actually written something. I mean, you're being far too literal here. This is a standard publishing royalty thing. It is very, very common for producers to be listed as writers because that determines where the royalties go. It's not literal words all the time. When Drake has a writing credit that says Q Miller for Quentin Miller, okay, yeah, he's probably doing some of the writing, but you just gotta look into these people's names and know who has what kind of a role. But the moral of the story is if you're going to try and call people out over liner notes, learn how to fucking read the credits properly, like know what you're doing. Because if this wasn't the first time you had ever read credits, you would have caught on to what's going on. If you look at the Marshall Mathers LP, you can see that the producer is given co-writing credit on almost every track. This has been going on for a very long time. So, to listener questions, a lot of these had to do with the fallout of the URL strike that occurred due to a very short-lived dispute over a misunderstanding about the degree of pay-per-view earnings that URL got off of Summer Madness. So if you want to see my recap of that, check the previous episode. So someone asked a question, are battlers creating an era of disrespect towards leagues and league owners? Yes. At least in these particular examples, that was an example of that, and you see it a lot. But honestly, like, as a league owner myself, like, this kind of comes with the territory. It is generally to be expected that the people doing the organization are held to a higher standard of professional conduct than the performers. And there are many performers that live up to that same standard, but many that don't, and we just kind of tolerate it. And if you're gonna throw battles, you've got to be ready to deal with people acting kind of disrespectfully towards you whenever they feel like things aren't going their way, and you just got to put up with it and be a good sport about it. You know, we deal in inside baseball. You can't always expect that people are going to understand things from our point of view and know like how much we invest and the time we put in, because we're not the people in front of the camera. I don't even think this is like a new era of that. I think it's just been always the case. All right, next question. Are battle rappers relying too heavily on the sport as a career choice? Again, yes, to whatever extent someone considers battle rap an actual career choice, I think they should be disillusioned of that. There are virtually no people making a living wage off of battle rap entirely. It can be part of the equation. Some people use it as a promotional vehicle for other things they have going on. Some people use it for a little spare cash, or just an excuse to get some travel in. But if you run the numbers, this is not currently, if it ever will be, lucrative enough for someone to consider it their full-time job. If you have that expectation, and you think you're going to work your way up to the ladder to the point where you can just battle and make all the money you need to live on, you know, you need to reevaluate that, because I think that's a false dream. And, you know, you could make a lot of misguided decisions based on thinking that. Next question. Did Hitman Holla trick guys into following his lead knowing he was financially stable? So, Hitman Holla is like probably one of the top paid battle rappers in the world, and the reason his draw is so huge is because he battles regularly on network television. He is a gig at BET. So, you know, in a sense, he is living off battle rap because he's on a TV show doing it. That's a different thing. So was it irresponsible of him coming, you know, partially loaded with information to lead all these other guys into saying, hey, let's strike against URL? I mean, yeah, you could say that, but I don't think he was intentionally tricking people. You know, he meant well. I didn't listen to his whole like 2-hour interview, but in the parts that I did see, there were a lot of points that he dropped that did come from an educated perspective of the industry. Things like, you know, if you care about when your footage is going to drop, you should put that into the contract, or, you know, you should be pushing for opportunities to plug your other stuff in the footage, and you know, like lots of smart business stuff mixed in with this vast misapprehension of how much money is actually coming into the system. Next question, just a request to talk about battlers booking their own event. This has come out of this discussion. In particular, you know, you had Hitman Holla and the rest of them saying like, well, we could have done our own Summer Madness event with all these same names and collected all that pay-per-view revenue and just kept it instead of URL, what they thought was, you know, keeping a disproportionate amount of it. If that were true, and if these battlers were just as capable at producing such a high grossing event, then they would be able to create real competition with URL and start some kind of bidding war. I think the value of URL's infrastructure is such that they would not realistically be able to compete at that same level. But perhaps there are scenarios in which battlers can create their own kind of situation. Another reason this is coming up is you have Disaster has been saying for a long time he wanted to throw his own event so he can control all the particulars. He's going to be battling someone named Chase Banks, who I understand is a short person, so that might come up in the battle. They're just going to do a one battle event, $10 pay-per-view, very affordable. You know, let's see how it does. And Disaster is perhaps one of those few people that could by himself be a big enough draw to get a fair amount of pay-per-view sales. We'll see how it does. I'm kind of skeptical about this notion. Let me just address the premise of battlers booking their own events, because every once in a while someone says like, well, what if the battlers just started their own league? And I think, like, wait a minute, the battlers did start their own league. It was called Grind Time. Battlers did start their own league. It was called King of the Dot. Battlers did start their own league. It was called No Coast Raps and iBattle, and battlers started Don't Flop, and on it goes. So this is not a new idea. Like, you know, most of the people who have started leagues have been battle rappers because we're the ones who care about it, you know? It's not such a lucrative endeavor that it attracts all these, you know, career event promoters so that they can capitalize on it, you know? It's a very niche thing. Maybe what's different in some of the scenarios that are being suggested is that the headliners are doing it specifically to feature themselves. You didn't see a lot of that. I actually posed a question to a few of my friends that we weren't able to definitively answer. What is the best card ever that was organized by the headliner? It's usually been the model that battlers do, you know, produce some of the most important events. Like, you know, one of my favorite events ever is Grizzlemania 2 that Cap Callis put on. But they don't actually feature themselves, or if they do, they're not, you know, the main attraction. I think it might even create a conflict of interest for people to build the whole event around themselves. But Certainly willing to see where it goes. As Calico and Hollow the Dawn were saying on Angry Fan, you do have to pretty much accept what you're able to negotiate at the table with the people who are throwing events, or go out and create your own situation if you feel like you can do better. All right, an interesting question from Rob K. How much financial backing would it take to make a united national battle league? I don't necessarily think that the financial backing is the big barrier there. It's so much to do with certain parties working with each other that might not otherwise. We did at one point in America have a unifying national battle league, which was Grind Time. Different divisions of Grind Time were all posting to the same channel. It was all part of the same underlying narrative with each little regional subplots here and there, and I think a lot of people that were watching Battle Rap at the time missed that. I think it's safe to say that King of the Dot is still, to some extent, the national Battle League of Canada, and for a while when they were moving into California, it looked like they were poised to expand over the US as well. Didn't end up coming to fruition. But if you look into it, like, Grind Time fell because of specific disputes over, you know, how business was going to be handled. It wasn't necessarily that there wasn't enough backing. I think if things had shaken out just a little differently, they could have kept going under that umbrella. I think maybe all it would take to happen again would be several of the more influential organizers spread across different regions to all get on the same page and decide how they were going to operate. And maybe it doesn't happen because they don't feel like they have a common interest. Nowadays, one of NOCO's goals is to be, you know, the first unifying league across the entire Midwest. And, you know, we don't have it all covered, but we've got St. Louis, Chicago, and Minneapolis, which are three of the hot spots. So at least we've got a whole lot of the Midwest map part of our narrative. If you're asking specifically if I were trying to get it done, how much backing I would need, I guess this is where I'd start. I'd say what you want is at least 3 or 4 divisions, let's say 4 to be safe. You have the West Coast covered, East Coast covered, Midwest, and Florida. There's other ways you can map it out, but that's an example. So 4 divisions, you'd want probably each of them to be able to have a nationally relevant event, say twice a year. Because if they're all doing just local events, then you're not going to capture everyone's attention in the way that Grind Time did, and I think you haven't really accomplished what you're trying to do here. To make a nationally relevant event, you're looking at least a $5,000 to $7,000 card. Some of them are much more, but to get people's attention, gonna take at least that, multiple headliners. So conservatively, that's about what it would take. $10,000 per division per year. Investing about $40,000 a year, you'd be able to basically hold the country down, and it would depend on how well you were promoting the events, how much of that you'd be able to make back or even make a profit, say. And coincidentally, that's a similar number to the $50,000 prize of the World Rap Championships that once upon a time united everybody before Grind Time. Alright, I'm gonna save most of these questions for later, but just a couple quick ones. What's the best signature move in Battle Rap? Well, since I've been picking on Hitman Holla, let's go with him. I'm going to say the Hitman Holla remix is the best signature move in Battle Rap. In particular, if you look at the Sioux Surf battle he had where he does a jump in with Show Off, and it goes wrong, and then he does another one later. Show Off tries to jump in, he's like, no, you fucked up my last one. Like, the series of remixes and jump ins that happen in that, I was just floored by that, because the impressive thing about that is knowing that it would work, knowing, like, having the comedy timing just perfect, and you know, knowing that you'd be able to get away with you know, oh, he's saying the line again, but there's a subtle variation and everyone keys into it. You know, he may be one of the best at knowing just how to work a giant crowd like that. On paper, it wouldn't have been remotely obvious to me that any of that would even work. And the final question, do you put sugar or cheese in your spaghetti? Personally, cheese, but hey, the Italians do sugar, and they're not wrong. Alright guys, let me know what you want to hear about next time. Subscribe to DJ Pompey and No Coast Raps on YouTube. I'll see you later.